Yes, Maharaj. You can start.
Om Jnana-timirandasya.
Recording in progress.
Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevata Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam at the level of Bhakti Vaibhava. We're on the third canto, and today we're looking at chapter number 16 of the third chapter. Are you able to see my PowerPoint presentation here?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, good. Okay, so lesson number 5. The two doorkeepers of Vaikuṇṭha, Jaya and Vijaya, cursed by the sages. Here's the main sections which come in this chapter. In the previous chapter, you'll remember, chapter 15, we heard how the 4 Kumaras had entered into Vaikuṇṭha. But when they entered to the 7th gate, they were stopped by the 2 gatekeepers, Jaya and Vijaya. So then the 4 Kumaras were upset and they got angry and they felt that these 2 doorkeepers didn't deserve to be there. They thought they didn't belong in the spiritual world. So the 4 Kumaras actually cursed that Jaya and Vijaya that they should go to the material world. And it was at that time when the Lord came. Lord Padmanabha appeared there immediately. It says that Lord Padmanabha came immediately because he didn't even wait for Garuda to bring him. He immediately came on foot because he didn't want there to be any further disruption between them. All right, so then the Lord came and he is speaking. Well, first of all, the four Kumaras were very happy, of course, to see Lord Padmanabha. And we had that nice verse, Tashyaravinda Nayanasya Pararavinde, like that they saw the beauty of the Lord, they smelt the aroma of the tulsis from his lotus feet, and they experienced a change in their heart. They experienced a change from impersonalism to devotees. Previously they had been jnanis, but after seeing, it's very disturbing when there's a lot of noise in the background. I don't know what somebody's doing, but somebody's making a lot of noise to disturb. Usually what we have to do, we have to mute everybody because people are so noisy in the background. So the four Kumaras experienced a change from jnanis, they became devotees. And their level of devotion is described to be shantaras. That they're examples of devotees in shantaras. But that's better than being jnanis. Alright, so the chapter begins with the Lord responding to the four Kumaras, because the four Kumaras had offered their prayers, heartfelt prayers to Lord Padmanabha, and the Lord replies, and he expresses his love for the devotees. And we'll hear about it. And then the chapter continues, the four Kumaras remain submissive. Although Lord Padmanabha describes his love for his devotees, and who are his devotees? Well, they're all the four Kumaras have become devotees, and Jaya and Vijaya are also his devotees, of course. Actually, the Acharyas describe that Jaya and Vijaya are more intimately connected to the Lord than the four Kumaras. Remember, the four Kumaras, they were coming from the platform of Jnana, from the platform of impersonalism. They were fixed on the platform of Brahman. But Jaya and Vijaya, they were engaged in intimate service for the Lord. So the relationship between the Lord and Jaya and Vijaya was more meaningful than the relationship between the Lord and the four Kumaras. And the four Kumaras remain submissive. All right, they hear the Lord speaking about the glories of his devotee and love for his devotees. So the four Kumaras then begin to consider that actually they were wrong, that they shouldn't have cursed the gatekeepers. So we have this section 26 to 34. Who was actually at fault? The gatekeepers or the four Kumar? Actually, when we hear the text, the Lord also says, the Lord said it's his fault. And the gatekeepers say it's their fault. And the four Kumars say it's our fault. And they're all feeling guilty. They're all expressing their guilt. And so very interesting. And then the chapter finishes with Brahma's concluding words to the demigods. All right, so this is the chapter. It's a nice chapter. We'll go through the main points here in the PowerPoint. All right, could somebody read this first slide, please?
To commit an offense, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranamam Kleshta Srila Prabhupada. To commit an offense at the feet of a devotee of the Lord is a great wrong. Even when a living entity is promoted to Vaikuṇṭha, there is still the chance that he may commit offenses. But the difference is that when one is in a Vaikuṇṭha planet, even if by chance one commits an offense, he is protected by the Lord. This is the remarkable fact in the dealings of the Lord and the servitor. as seen in the present incident. The word atikramam used herein indicates that in offending himself. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.16.2.
Thank you, ma'am. We're neglecting the Lord himself. Of course, we know offences against the devotees, very serious. There is a mad elephant offence, the first offence in the chanting of the holy name. But it is surprising to note here that even if we go to Vaikuṇṭha, it's surprising to note that when we go to commit offences, we would think that in Vaikuṇṭha, because we heard there's perfect harmony, we were studying the nature of the Vaikuṇṭha world in the previous chapter, and it was described there how there's perfect harmony in Vaikuṇṭha. So we may think there's no possibility of any offense, but there is still the chance that one may commit offense. However, there is a distinction, and the distinction is that if we commit an offense in the Vaikuṇṭhas, we are protected by the Lord. So who had committed an offense?
The doorkeepers.
The doorkeepers.
Actually 4 Kumaras.
Yeah, we could think the 4 Kumaras. We could think also the 2 doorkeepers, the 2 doorkeepers, and why are the 2 doorkeepers considered to be offensive? What did they do wrong?
Because they barred the entrance of 4 Kumaras.
So what's wrong with that?
Because as the 4 Kumaras will tell that this is Vaikuṇṭha, so everyone is in harmony, as Maharaj said. So why do you think that there is a danger to the Lord? He is the Lord, He is control of everything. So why do you think like that? So you are not fit for to be present in this planet.
But Jaya and Vijaya, they're thinking, well, these just children. How could they be qualified to come to the spiritual world?
Yes.
So how do we argue?
Also that is their job. I mean, the doorkeepers are there to protect. To give privacy to Padmanabha.
Yes. Yeah, we could say like that. The doorkeeper's job is to stop people from entering. Just like when Prabhupada would come, they would always put some security around Prabhupada's room so people wouldn't go in and disturb Prabhupada. So, the same way, Lord Padmanabha, he has also some security guards there protecting. And we could also, however, the argument is that to get into the spiritual world means they must be pure. If they were not pure, they wouldn't be able to enter to the spiritual world. So how could there be any wrong in the 4 Kumaras coming in? But somehow they've entered into that region, and so they must have been pure. They had they were qualified. They were able to enter. If they had not been qualified, they would not have been able to enter. And then the 2 gatekeepers tried to stop them, and the 4 Kumaras, what is their offense?
That without knowing their cursing.
Without knowing what?
Without knowing that how dear they are to Krishna and why they are stopping and what is their role. Without knowing how pure devotee, they are cursing them.
Without knowing who?
about the gatekeepers, without knowing about the gatekeepers, that whether they are pure devotee or not, whether that they're doing their job, they're cursing, thinking that, oh, they are imposters, without knowing that they're not imposters and all.
Yeah. How should they have known that they're not imposters?
I think that they should be more calm, and because they are jnani, they could have understood if they are not overcome by ignorance, by anger.
They shouldn't have been so quick.
Maharaj, I'd like to add something.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Maharaj, if my understanding is correct, an offense only works when the person against whom we have committed an offense, he is hurt and he feels bad. So Chaturkumaras were hurt when the two doorkeepers didn't allow them to enter. So that's an offense. And when they cursed them, the doorkeepers, they also felt bad because they were Vaishnavas. So that was an offense. Am I correct, Maharaj?
Well, I've never heard this before, Prabhu. I've never heard this before, that the person has to feel hurt in order for the effect of the offense to be there. You know, it's an interesting point, but I've never heard it made like, I've never seen anywhere where it's made like that. There are many cases where pure devotees are treated wrongly, you know, but the pure devotee himself never takes any offense. You know, people may deal unpleasantly with devotees. Now, the pure devotees, they're transcendental, they don't take offense. But the people who offend them, they get punished, they get reactions.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, in case when once Rupa Goswami was meditating on some pastime and one Vaishnava who was, I think, bodily deformed, he passed, and then he by mistake he thought that Rupa Goswami is laughing on him, so he was hurt, and then that was an offense. I don't know if it is like that.
Yeah, well, I know the pastime. Yeah, Rupa Goswami was laughing. He was meditating on some Krishna Leela, and the Brahmana took offense, and the Brahmana thought that Rupa Goswami was laughing at him, but Rupa Goswami was laughing because he was meditating. He had seen some amusing event take place between Krishna and the gopis when they were all bathing. So Rupa Goswami was laughing at that. And that affected his meditation, because the Brahmana took offense at the laughing of Rupa Goswami. The Rupa Goswami's meditation was not able to be effective from that point. And he had to beg forgiveness from the Brahmana and explain to the Brahmana that he was not laughing at him.
Yes, Maharaj.
Can I say something, Maharaj?
Yes, please do, Prabhu.
Maharaj, as you asked why they were angry like that. So they have crossed the 6 gates and they were not devoured. So that may be because that he became angry. They became angry. In the 7th gate, why 7th gate they were devoured? In the 6 gates, no one devoured them. So why in the 7th gate? That may be a question. That may be a point, Maharaj.
I'm not able to understand your voice so well, Prabhu. The voice is not so clear.
Maharaj, he passed all 6 gates.
Yes.
And there they were not devoured.
Right.
Then why in the 7th gate they devoured? That may be cause, Maharaj.
Yes, well, from the information we're given, there were no gatekeepers at the other 6 gates. They just entered in.
Okay, Maharaj. Okay.
So, but when they got to the 7th gate, then the 2 gatekeepers were there. But previously there had been no gatekeepers. That's how I understood.
Maharaj,
I have a question. Can I ask?
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question. Can I ask?
All right. What's your question?
So Maharaj, in this pastime we see that there's clearly 2 devotee parties that are having a conversation, and both sides there has been a misunderstanding in one way. or obviously we know from the Acharya's commentary that this is the Lord's desire. But in ISKCON now, where we are learning to get trained in devotional etiquette so that we can make it to the spiritual world, there are many times we do not recognize a devotee because external appearances can be misunderstood. At the same time, somebody's internal desire or sincerity cannot also be judged from an external level. So as we grow in our devotional path, and as we grow by being more in this devotional line, how do we train ourselves in such a way that we deal with devotees in a way that the judging becomes less, but not in an artificial way, that maybe we don't judge, but when we come home, then the whole day we're judging them in the mind.
Well,
we're
going to talk about these things. This is coming up in a few, just
okay,
now.
Thank you, Maharaj.
These points are going to come up. Yeah. Maharaj, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Maharaj. In our previous class, actually, this was discussed. So I remember this. I wanted to say this, that because the four Kumaras were impersonalist, so that is why they were not given entry inside the seventh gate. So this was actually pointed out in our previous class, that that is why Krishna, Padmanabha comes out to show them, and make them Krishna conscious, but they were not allowed because of their offenses which they have done. The four Kumaras, they were actually not allowed inside. So from the gate itself, they were, told to leave. So this is why I also think that yes, four Kumaras have actually offended than the gatekeeper. Gatekeepers were doing the duty which was given to them.
Well, yeah. I don't know about all this. We could say that the four Kumaras, to enter into the spiritual world, just like Durvasa Muni could enter into the spiritual world. He was not a devotee, but he could enter there. He could enter into Vaikuṇṭha. But the point is, they entered, but they don't stay. So the four Kumaras entered, and as they entered, the Lord came and he gave mercy to them. So he understood their situation. They were not offensive, and they were pure in their minds. They had no material desires. They'd come there, and the Lord was willing to give the shelter of his lotus feet to them. So they did become devotees. So we can't say that they had to leave, because they actually did become devotees when they saw the Lord and they offered feeling prayers to him. So I don't fully agree with everything like that. You say they had to leave. I don't, Yeah,
but they did not enter, right? They did not enter the seventh gate. From the gate itself, they had to go back.
Well, they didn't. Did they have to go back? But they actually became devotees. It describes how they became devotees. The verse was there. They smelt the aroma of the tulsi leaves from his lotus feet, and their devotion awakened. And it actually said that they became devotees on the level of Shantaras. So you can't say they had to leave. Yeah, maybe they did leave, but usually they stayed in four Kumaras. They stay more in Tapaloka, which is one of the higher planets there in the universe. But it wasn't like they were told, get out, you're not qualified. Rather that, of course, they didn't have the intimate relationship with Jaya and Vijaya have with the Lord, but they did become devotees. They awakened their devotion because the Lord personally came, he appeared to them. And by seeing the Lord, they had become devotees.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, one quick question. This always had in my mind that impersonalist means who believes in merging into Brahman, right? So these four Kumaras, how did they become impersonalists? Because
Well, it's not that they have to merge into, they can be Brahmagyanis. There's also Brahmagyanis. It's not that they just believe in merging. The Brahmagyanis, they're satisfied on the platform of Brahman. Now, they'd heard about the Lord from Lord Brahma, but they'd never actually seen the Lord. So they had been attracted by the Brahman, but they had never actually had the opportunity to see the Lord. But once they saw him, then they awakened their devotion for him. So they came.
So why didn't they have the feeling of love for a personal form of Krishna? Because they already got the information. Like we also did not see with our material eyes,
Yeah,
but we are attracted to Krishna's form.
Well, they're attracted to the Lord's form. When they saw the Lord's form, they were very attracted. That attraction was there. As soon as they saw the Lord's form, they became attracted. And they gave up their impersonalism, and they gave up that attachment, the identification with the Brahman, and they immediately awakened their devotion and offered prayers to the Lord.
Yeah. Before, why didn't they become like that, Maharaj? Because they
it's a pastime. It's a leela to show us that they can be, that even one is on the platform of Brahman, that he won't be satisfied there. That until he awakens devotion, he won't be satisfied.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
We have to see these examples. Okay, we have to go ahead. Let's go ahead. Someone read next verse. This is text number 4.
A wrong act committed by a servant lives on of the street.
Hare Krishna. Can I have someone read text number 4, the next slide?
Is the highest and most beloved personality. The disrespect shown by my attendants is actually being displayed by me because the doormen are my servitors. I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen.
So what is the Lord saying? Prabhu, can you give us a simple language? What is the Lord saying?
A person in management, basically if someone's higher, if people below them commit any fault.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada, if somebody wrote to Prabhupada complaining, and he forced me to buy a book and I had to give him money, the man wrote complaining, and so Prabhupada would write back and say, I'm very sorry. He would say, I am very sorry. Prabhupada would apologize to him because he considered the devotee to be his representative. So similarly here also, the Lord is apologizing on behalf of Jaya and Vijaya. So the Lord says, I take this to be an offense by myself. I seek your forgiveness. Okay, go ahead, read text number 5.
A wrong act committed by a servant leads people in general to blame his master. Just as a spot of white leprosy on any part of the body pollutes all of the skin.
All right, yeah, the servant represents the master. So the disciple is distributing, preaching Krishna consciousness, he's representing Srila Prabhupada. We must be very cautious. Okay, here's a little exercise, just in relation to what we're talking about here. A devotee should always see that his Vaishnava qualities increase with the advancement of his Krishna consciousness. A devotee should be blameless because any offense by the devotee is a scar on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's duty is to be always conscious in his dealings with others, especially with another devotee of the Lord. Discussing groups, the practical relevance of the above statement for ISKCON devotees in general. Without going into groups, which takes so much time, we just want to take some feedback from the devotees. You've already commented a little on it. One devotee already brought it up, that ISKCON devotees in general, we have to consider this, right? It's a very important, very relevant for all of us in ISKCON. Dealing with each other. Dealings with others, especially with another devotee. Is this relevant for us? Yeah, undoubtedly, right? Anybody?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, would you like to comment on this?
Sure, Marge. We see that, I think it was mentioned in one of the previous classes about ISKCON Resolve.
Yeah.
We see that they have a structure like that even at the level of the GBC and other leadership structures. So it's certainly relevant that disagreements will happen. But yeah, we need a form of mediation. That's one way to resolve it. But also, yeah, devotees need to be more sensitive, communicate clearly, and yeah, I don't know what else to say, but yeah, it's an important subject. It's a very important subject matter that needs to be done.
Yeah, we work it against ourselves if we cannot work together. Of course, there's Prabhupada's famous quote, which he gave before he left the world, that your love for me will be shown by how you all cooperate with each other after I'm gone. And we do face these challenges that working with each other, it's a challenge, because somehow we allow the personality of Kali to infiltrate into our midst, and we begin to argue with each other, and we split into factions and different groups, and it defeats our own purpose. So we do want to try to somehow create the Vaikuṇṭha mood, which is based on harmony. So it's particularly relevant for devotees. We want to show an example to others. People generally come to Krishna consciousness looking to get away from the influence of Kali Yuga. And if they come into the ISKCON society and find us all arguing with each other, they'll think these people are no different from outside. So we defeat our own purposes if we're not working together. It's a challenge. It's certainly difficult because, we do have our own different ideas, different ways in which things we want to do, different methods we want to do. And so it's a challenge, but somehow we have to consider the higher purpose. Is that all right? Anybody want to comment on that?
Just one other point, Marge. I was thinking as well that, especially with the rise of social media, it's made criticism, fault finding, and all these other things a lot easier because you don't have to confront the other person face to face.
Yeah.
Otherwise, back in the day where this media channels and everything wasn't there, I think people probably committed less offenses. Whereas now it's a lot easier to spread hate, as we see. That's all much.
Yeah, anything you want, put it on Facebook and it's read by millions of people, huh? Yeah, we have to be...
Maharaj,
yeah?
Can I ask another question?
Well, you can ask. I don't know if I can answer.
So, Maharaj, just like you mentioned that this is such a critical thing for us as devotees, we also understand that ISKCON is an institution that has been formed to help us get closer to Krishna and to Prabhupada. And our love is there, so we are loyal. But we're also not blind to the fact that ISKCON is growing as a movement. You mentioned in the first class that yes, we've made mistakes in the past. We might make mistakes in the future. But also the institution has a capacity to which it can come down to the individual level and help all of us in our problems. Like Prabhuji mentioned, ISKCON Resolve, you find that's kept for very serious issues and for parties who agree to let ISKCON Resolve be the arbitrator. But in other situations where temples have individual powers, right, that's the ISKCON structure, decentralized. The real solution then for the masses is what? Is it our sadhana? Is it that we keep quiet till we understand, maybe with certainty, that how we should behave? Is it that there should be more training programs? So from your experience, Maharaj, of so many years, what do you advise us? At least so we make it back to Godhead without doing foolish mistakes of offensing.
Well, what do I advise? Generally, yeah, training is very nice. If we have more training programs, that's good. And also, we have to become a little bit detached. You can't be too much attached to your way and your thinking. You know, people say my way or the highway. You know, they want their way. It's got to be my way, no other way. We have to be flexible. We have to live and let live. And sometimes you just have to let things go, even though you may know this is not going to work. But if it's not going to work, then sometimes it takes time before people can understand. And it takes time for things to change. So that's generally what's required. There has to be some tolerance. You know, you have to be willing to, okay, you know, if this is how it's going to be, what can I say? You just have to go along with it. So don't be too much attached to having your own way. I think that's important. And you know, ISKCON Resolve is certainly good, but as you said, not everybody agrees. You know, we had an issue recently and the devotees said, no, we don't agree, we're not going to go to ISKCON Resolve. Oh, Krishna. No, what to do? You get these kind of things. Okay, we'll go ahead. Okay, here's text number 6. Would someone like to read this section for us?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Then is pronunciation. In other words, a Vaishnava should not be evaluated in terms of his body. The Shastra states that no one should think the deity in the temple to be made of wood or stone. And no one should think that a person coming from a lower caste family who has taken to Krishna consciousness is still of the same low caste. These attitudes are forbidden because anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness is understood to be fully purified. He is at least engaged in the process of purification. And if he sticks to the principle of Krishna consciousness, he will be very soon be fully purified. The conclusion is that if one takes to Krishna consciousness with all seriousness, he is to be understood as already purified, and Krishna is ready to give him protection by all means. The Lord assures herein that he is ready to give protection to his devotee, even if there is a need to cut off a part of his own body.
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:16.
So this is the Lord's assurance that he will give protection to his devotee, even to the extent he's willing to cut off part of his own body. You know, there are a few statements here which we may doubt, where, for example, it mentions that anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness is understood to be fully purified. Well, who has actually taken to Krishna consciousness? That's another question. People may join the movement, they may have different motives. Have they actually taken to Krishna consciousness? Sometimes these things are questionable. But Prabhupada would always be very lenient and merciful and considered everyone a devotee, that they've come to Krishna consciousness. And as he said, if we stick to the principles, very soon, we don't know what very soon means, he'll be fully purified. And so it's difficult. It's sometimes, you know, we're challenged. But the principle is there. He's a devotee. We should be respectful, we should deal with him. Another little exercise for us to think about. On the basis of verses 4 to 12, that's this first section dealing with the Lord's relationship with his devotees. Discuss various aspects of the Lord's relationship with his devotees. Also discuss various reasons why we fail to see devotees in the proper perspective. And discuss practical ways and means so that we can view devotees in the right perspective. So this is very much in relation to that question the devotee was bringing up here at the beginning of the class. I thought, wait till it comes up here. So here's your chance. Would you like to have some group work on this? Do you think it would be valuable if you go into groups? How many?
We want your point of view, Maharaj.
Huh?
We want your point of view in this, Maharaj.
Well, I'm also eager to hear your point of view. And I'll give my point of view, but I think you should also discuss yourselves. How many people do we have here? Yes? How many?
17, Maharaj. 177.
17. So could we have groups of 4 and one group of 5?
Sure, Maharaj.
So there'll be 3 groups of 4 and one group of 5. 4 groups. And, there's 3 questions really. Various aspects. Discuss various aspects. Discuss various reasons why we fail to see. So what are the reasons why we fail to see devotees in the proper perspective? And how can we view devotees in the right perspective? So that's the main point of the question. Why do we fail to see devotees in the proper perspective? And what do we need to do so that we can see devotees in the proper way?
How long do we have for discussion? For preparing?
About 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Then you can join group.
Yeah, Prabhu, that option just left.
Recording stopped.
That option left?
Yeah, I don't have that option anymore. I think mine was group 4.
What I have to do right now, I don't know. कहीं पे होगा देखो. You just check. It should be somewhere in your screen.
I can't see it. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Because I'm admin, I can go to breakout rooms and then I'll just join group 4. Yeah, there's only 3 people. Take care.
Maharaj, would you like to join some group?
Yes.
There's already a message on your screen. Again.
Really? Where? I didn't get any message. What group should I join?
Group number 2.
Okay.
I have not said anything.
Ramya Prabhu is speaking.
Ramya Prabhu, but we are not unable, yes.
Okay.
We are unable.
I was trying to use some headphones, but that's making it worse. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhuji. Now it is
Low volume. Prabhu, you are not in on video?
I'm not aware.
Okay. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
So I was saying that we can see how seriously the Lord takes his relationship and satisfaction of all his devotees. It's a top priority for him. And he never tries to push himself ahead of the devotees, even though he is actually the leader of the devotees and the Supreme Ishvara. Did you hear that?
Yes, Prabhu.
But I would say generally the problem seems to come because the devotees are not thinking of the Lord. There's no relationship with the Lord. It's simply that tendency, that conditioning is prominent there. And it's just really to try to come to a pure consciousness, to actually think in terms of being devotees. We're coming out of the material world, coming into Krishna conscious atmosphere. It's a big transformation, and we bring a lot of conditioning with us.
Yes, that's true. And sometimes we hold on to it for way too long.
Yeah.
I'm speaking about myself.
Well, yeah, based on our own experiences, we know what we've been through, and you know, it takes a long time to actually come to that level. Of course, nowadays we have a lot more congregation people, so it's maybe they're a bit more mature. But in the days of the ashram, where everybody was living in an ashram, then it was there was much more conflict. I think it's a little better now than it was before. What do you think?
It's better in one sense that we don't have such intense interactions daily between devotees who are, very neophyte, along with the others. But it's kind of shifted because it's not that they've joined the congregation, they're suddenly not neophyte. So it just comes out at different times in different ways, I find.
Yeah, definitely. It will come out different times, different ways.
Maharaj, it is also said in Bhagavad Gita that apichet sudracharo bhajatima manandevak sadhureva samanteva sanak bhavasitvaisa. Even if one is having so much
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Very short time, Maharaj.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, we could have discussed this for a long time, right? Yeah. What do you think? We want another 5 minutes on this?
That would be good, Maharaj, because
Really?
we couldn't discuss.
All right. Okay, take another 5 minutes on it then.
The only question is, how do we go back into the same groups? Oh, we can. Okay, there we go. 4. Okay.
Recording in progress.
the groups have changed.
Group baru change.
Group change.
We've got all different people, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Oh,
We're actually in the same group, I think.
Really?
Yeah. Well, other than Diti Rata and we were both there again.
Oh, we're not in the same group.
No.
So many people.
Where's Ramya?
Oh, everyone is here, actually.
That's what I'm saying. Put and then we'll put back.
Yeah.
Parthasati Prabhu.
Do we need to create group, Maharaj?
Well, I thought we were going back in the same group, but it seems to be a different group. I don't know.
I'll try one more. This time is
Oh, Ramya, yeah, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
At one point I was thinking really very beneficial is like Lord Chaitanya said, this verse, Trinada peace and Ichena, Tarora peace and Ichena, should always wear it around your neck and should be our topmost priority. So if you really take this to heart, a lot of the failures that we have between devotees would probably be dissipated.
Yeah, it's really a key factor. That verse is so meaningful, so important. But just to get devotees to apply it, you know, that it's easy to say, it's another thing to do. Offering all respect to others and not being eager to be respected ourselves. We're always thinking, I'm right. You know, I know what I'm talking about, you know. That tends to be the mood. You know, listen to me, I know what I'm saying, you know. We want to...
Yeah, or like somehow that verse doesn't apply in one particular situation, you know. I mean, I personally saw it. I had two different devotees, authority and congregation, and they were having some disagreement, and they said, each party said, until the other party apologizes, I will not speak to them. I can't do anything for you.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
And where is this humility, you know? I mean, somehow they don't think that applies.
Yeah, it's definitely... What can we do about it? What can be done, you know? What's the solution?
You can't force it. You can be an example, and you can preach it, but you can't force it.
We just have to give in to them, to the other party. We just give it, because you know, if they don't want to have, you know, they don't want to go to resolve. They don't. They want.
Well, I tried speaking about that. You know, okay, you take the position and tolerate, and they said no, I won't. So then, problem remains.
Yeah. What can be done? We want people to stay in Krishna consciousness. We want them to be enlivened. We want them to be encouraged. Sometimes the best thing is keep everybody out of management, you know. Don't let them get involved in management. That's the worst thing. If you can stay out of management, then you're really blessed.
Yes, any shortcomings seem to get greatly magnified in that condition.
Of course, Ishtagostis are good, you know, just getting people together and talking, just somehow or other getting people together and getting them to just to understand each other. But as you say, you know, you get sometimes these situations, nobody wants to give in. They have to apologize to me. It's very difficult, very challenging.
So all I can conclude is that I am not pure enough, I'm not advanced enough to these devotees actually want to hear what I say.
So we should all, that's the humble mood, right? To think that, you know, that I'm not pure. Okay, so just keep quiet and let somebody else go ahead. Let them have their way and see what happens.
And you know, you have to also understand everyone's got different conditionings, and this is material world. So these things will happen, and sometimes there's no quick solution to any of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a fact. There's no quick solution. Time itself will work it out. Of course, it's a waste of time. Sometimes, how much time have we got? Our time is limited, you know. How much time have we got? And they want to waste more time, just to, you know, something's not going to work, but they're so determined, they want to do it, and you just have to let them go ahead. Okay. Anybody else want to say anything here?
As Prabhupada says that it will continue for 10,000 years. So our problems will also be solved, and we will continue to progress in this.
The golden age of Kali Yuga will continue for 10,000 years.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes.
So we have for hope, we have reasons for hope, hoping for a bright future.
Yes. Yeah, the future's always bright. But the question is how long you have to wait before you get the future.
Okay.
How much time have you got?
Maharaj, you are complete done?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's hear group number 1.
No. You are still in breakout room, Maharaj. You have to leave breakout room.
Oh, I have to leave the breakout room. Okay. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Everyone's back?
Yes, Maharaj.
All right, so who's the spokesman for group 1?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we discussed that mainly like we don't see the devotees in a right perspective. It is because of our egoistic nature. So we always consider that our point of view is right, and we don't even think about what others are thinking. So it is because of our egoistic nature. And also it is because of our ignorance in the scriptures. So for example, like the goldsmith can understand the quality of a gold, but who does not know about the gold, so they cannot value it. So similarly, it is because of our ignorance, so we don't know the quality of other devotees. So that is one thing. And then it is lack of Krishna consciousness. So we are not seeing everyone as a children of God, and because we are in between, like we are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, but we are almost in the part of Maya. So in that way, like we always don't see as Krishna's children. If we consider them also as a Krishna's children, so then we don't think to find fault in them. And another thing is when we know the scriptural point of view, like, or when we are strong in scriptural thing, so then we will not commit offense, like, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned, like, it is a mad elephant offense. So when we commit offense, it's a mad elephant. Like, if we really want to progress in our spiritual path, so then definitely when we know all these things, so then we will not even think about that, so to commit offense. And also, like, we should always in the guidance of a senior devotees, so that, like, whether if we are saying something wrong, so we can discuss, like, this kind of thought is coming, like, how I can overcome. So in that way, like, we can take guidance from the senior devotees. And another point is, like, Vaishnava etiquette, we can learn from the association of the devotees. So when we associate with the devotees, then we know how we have to behave, and all those things we can learn from the association of devotees only. And always to practically follow this, we have to remember the famous, like, 6 Shastra prayers, like Trinatapi Sanichena Tarorapi Savshna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadavari. So if we really want to progress and chant our holy name eternally, then we have to be humble. So when we are humble, then we don't see the others' fault. And the example we can see the Jagai Madai pastimes. So Nityananda Prabhu, even though he got hurt, so he wants to, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to kill, but he immediately pointed out that Jagai, actually he stopped Madai to further hurt. So he see the good in others. So in that way, like, if we, whenever some fault-finding thoughts is coming, so then immediately we try to think what are the good qualities in them. So when we start meditate on that, so then automatically this fault-finding will go away. So, and also we should not expect the respect from others. So then we should always be ready to give respect to others. So if we are in that meditation, then mostly we can able to avoid these offenses, and we can see others' perspective also.
Very good. I think you covered everything. I think our group also, we had many similar points which you covered. So, very nice. Would any of the other groups like to add anything which Mataji didn't mention?
Oh, we are not having separate thing we have to add, because we missed out some points, what she read. We came in after our time was over, and I saw she was already saying, so I don't know.
Okay, do you have any new points which were not raised?
There might be, I don't know, Prabhuji, whether she covered this or not, but I can place this point as we are covered in 3 modes, and our vision is impure. That is one of the reasons why we fail to see the devotees in a proper perspective. And also familiarity. So familiarity brings contempt. I don't know whether this was covered or not. So therefore, when we are too much familiar with some devotees, then we try to, we sometimes do offenses and envy, all this creeps in. And sometimes we also underestimate and think that the devotees are, that devotee is less qualified than me. Maybe she or he doesn't speak good English, or doesn't come from this country or that country, and that may also bring that, superiority complex in us, which is also an offense. So that is another point. I don't know whether it is covered or not. And in the second question, I think humility is also covered, but that is one point which we also had. And we have to, we have to understand that everyone has flaw, and we cannot judge by their flaw. We have to see the good qualities rather than the bad qualities in them. And I think she covered everything other than that.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything? Group 3 or group 4?
Hare Krishna.
Yes?
Yes, Maharaj. We discussed similar points, and one of the points that was brought up by Sim Krishna Prabhu is that we have become conditioned to become judges, that we judge everybody by different perspectives, wealth, educational background, opulence, and so we've all become expert judges, and we don't realize how quick we are to judge, and that this is not a good facility or attitude that we have, and that we must work to change that reaction system that we have. And another point was we tend to forget, even after joining ISKCON, that we are still conditioned. We haven't yet made it. And so, because we are conditioned, we are bound to misjudge because we are still full of faults. So maybe we have become proud by joining ISKCON and thinking, yes, now I am a sadhu. But really, we're not yet, sadhu. So we should be more cautious and aware and not become too proud and, commit offenses by thinking we can really understand everything. Because, we have seen from ISKCON's history how many mistakes have happened at the highest levels. So we should just be more humble, like Mataji said, and try to accept our real position, that we're not so competent yet. This is what we discussed, Maharaj.
Okay, sounds very good to me. Very nice. Certainly I value these kind of statements. They're very helpful. Practical ways, it's difficult to, practically implement these kind of things. Getting us out of the bodily concept and making us humble, actually being humble, genuine humility. It's not easy. What are practical ways? I think the most important thing is very strict sadhana. If people have proper sadhana, good sadhana, it will help, it will go a long way to developing these better qualities, the humility and the willingness to hear from others and not thinking ourselves to be superior or better than others. So it's actually meant to be like that. It's meant to be, that everybody would go to the morning program and everyone. They even have a ruling like to be a member of the GBC, you must attend the morning program, you must go to Mongol Arti, and these kind of things, But it's difficult. Okay, we'll go ahead.
Can I mention one other thing, Marge? Practical?
Yeah?
So, in order to keep our position in the right place, we should remember two things and we should forget two things. The two things we should always remember: the good others have done to us and the bad we have done to others. And the two things we should forget are the good we have done to others and the bad others have done to us. And if we do this, we can remain in the right frame of consciousness.
You're asking for a lot. Yes, it's very, very true, Prabhu, very true, but it's not an easy thing to get people to do that always. Ramya Prabhu was telling me that sometimes you get people that there's just no way, if they don't apologize, I'm no way I'm going to work with them. Okay, we have to go ahead. Let's see what's next. Okay, text number 9. Yes? Someone could read for me?
Yes, ma'am. The Lord says that although He is the the Lord says that although He is the predominating factor of the internal energy, and although the material world is sanctified just by the water that has washed His feet, He has the greatest respect for the Brahmana, and the Vaishnava. When the Lord himself offers so much respect to the Vaishnava and the Brahmana, how can one deny such respect to such personalities?
Okay, so this is one point, that the Lord himself offers so much respect, we should also be willing to offer respect to the devotees and the brahmanas. Go ahead, read text number 11, the quote there from 11.
One may sometimes be faced with a grievous situation created by a Brahman, but instead of meeting him with a similar mood, one should try to pacify him with a smiling face and mild treatment. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas should be accepted as earthly representatives of Narayana.
All right. So grievous situation created by a Brahmana. So instead of meeting him with a similar mood, in other words, the Brahmana, someone's giving you trouble, are you going to try to give trouble back to him? So instead of trying to meet him with a similar mood, you know, it's like instead of trying to go by the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, we should try to pacify him with a smiling face and mild treatment. So this is the question, this is the principle in dealing with a difficult situation. Tolerance and smiling face and tolerant. Yes, someone can read this next quote, text 12.
This incident, therefore, proves that those who have once entered a Vaikuṇṭha planet can never fall down. The case of Jaya and Vijaya is not a fall down. It is just an accident. The Lord is always anxious to get such devotees back again to the Vaikuṇṭha planets as soon as possible. It is to be assumed that there is no possibility of a misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees. But when there are discrepancies or disruptions between one devotee and another, one has to suffer the consequences, although that suffering is temporary.
Okay. So, fall down. Did Jaya and Vijaya actually fall down? No, it's not a fall down. Prabhupada said it is just an accident. And the Lord is always anxious to get such devotees back again to the Vaikuṇṭha planets. So they're leaving for some time, but they're coming back. So not a big problem, no reason to lament. There's no possibility of a misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees. But when there are discrepancies, so it's not a misunderstanding, but there's some discrepancy, there's some other reason, disruption between the devotee, one devotee and another. So you have to suffer the consequences, but the suffering is temporary. So that's the point. Suffering, material world is temporary. It's purifying. We go through some difficulties, it's purifying for us. We should tolerate. Okay. This jumped up to text number 25 here. Yes, someone could read, please?
It is said that... Okay, Mataji, go ahead.
It's okay, Mataji.
I already read once, you carry on.
It is said that anyone who has implicit faith in the service of the Lord, or who actually engages in transcendental loving service, has all the good qualities of the demigods. Therefore, a devotee cannot be at fault. If sometime it is found that he is in error by accident or by some temporary arrangement, that should not be taken very seriously. In general, when dealing with devotees, we should not try to find faults. In Bhagavad Gita also, it is confirmed that devotee who faithfully serves the Supreme Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu or saintly person. Due to former habits, he may commit some wrong, but because he is engaged in service of the Lord, that wrong should not be taken very seriously.
All right? And so here's that verse which someone brought up earlier this evening. They were talking about this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajate Mam Ananyabha. Someone may commit a gross mistake, but still he should be considered a sadhu or a saintly person. Due to former habits, he does some wrong. But devotees, we should think. We shouldn't take it very seriously. Why? Because, well, he's a devotee. Anyone who has faith in the service of the Lord. So this is the idea. We have to have faith in the Lord's service, and we want to engage in service, and we should be developing the good qualities. That is the sign that we're actually becoming devotee, that we're becoming pure, that we develop the good qualities just simply by engaging in devotional service. Prabhupada writes, a devotee cannot be at fault. Well, but there's difference of opinions. Sometimes it's found he is in error by accident or by some temporary arrangement. Should not be taken very seriously. Well, certainly Prabhupada saw things happen, different devotees he would put into responsible positions, and he would give positions of leadership. And he saw that sometimes they would get in difficulty. They would have troubles. But Prabhupada always encouraged them. Come back. Continue. Certainly he never wanted them to go away from Krishna consciousness. That was the main thing. There was one devotee, he was in charge actually of the temple. It was in Detroit in Prabhupada's time. And so he did a lot of valuable service. He was a very nice devotee and he loved the deities. He did a lot of deity worship. And it was during his time that, Ambarish Prabhu, the grandson of Henry IV, had come there and become devotee. So Prabhupada was appreciating him. But the next time Prabhupada came to the Detroit, he saw the temple president had changed. And he said, what happened to the temple president? Where's the devotee who used to be in charge? And then the devotee said, oh, Prabhupada, he was not chanting his rounds. We had to take him out. And Prabhupada was very upset. He said, what? He said, who told you like this? He said, the devotee was not chanting his rounds, then he can chant, he can start to chant his rounds. But you don't take him out. You don't remove him from his service. You don't get rid of him. And there were several different occasions. There was another time, there was one devotee in Vrindavan. He was a European-bodied devotee, an English devotee actually. And Prabhupada liked him. Prabhupada was talking to him and so on. But everybody else, and particularly the temple president of Vrindavan, didn't like him. And he got him out of the temple. And when Prabhupada found out that the temple president had removed this devotee from the temple, Prabhupada was very upset. He didn't like that anybody should be sent away from Krishna consciousness. He wanted everyone to stay in Krishna consciousness. Didn't matter what they'd done, but he always wanted them to come back. If the people went away, they had problems, but Prabhupada would overlook them and bring them back and give them responsible positions also. Sometimes leaders would have difficulties and they get in difficulty, but when they would come back, Prabhupada would encourage them, come back, take up some service. He wanted them to be given responsible positions. Even though they had not kept up the standards, but as Prabhupada said here, it should be considered like an accident or an error. It shouldn't be taken very seriously. Of course, we should understand if it happens again and again that his devotional service is not of a very high standard. But still, he's a devotee. we should encourage them, everyone, to stay in Krishna consciousness. Okay, here's a little exercise. Pair exercise. Maybe we can have pairs. Discuss with your partner any incident when you wrongly found fault with the devotees, and what were the consequences of such behavior in your own personal Krishna conscious life. Discuss what steps you plan to take to reduce this fault-finding tendency. When you wrongly found fault with the devotees, and what were the consequences of such behavior in your own personal Krishna consciousness? We'll have to be very honest here to recognize this. Might be difficult for us to recognize an incident where we were wrong, we found fault someone. It will take some personal honesty. Okay, can we put devotees into pairs?
Sure, Maharaj.
It shouldn't take too long. Thank you.
Maharaj, how much time?
Can we try 5 minutes?
Okay.
Recording stopped.
Mataji, you have completed your discussion? Aditya Lata Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Maharaj, I guess everybody has would have completed their discussion.
Okay, close the groups.
Okay. We have to give them 1 minute more.
Okay.
I didn't expect respect.
Everybody is back, Maharaj.
All right. Yes. So would someone like to offer some feedback on this?
Recording in progress.
Yeah, Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Yes, Maharaj. During my stay in ISKCON Burla temple, ISKCON Burla, Sambalpur, Odisha, I was going to my official duty in the morning and returning back by 5 p.m. And prasadam I was receiving from the prasadam hall. A devotee was cooking with nice prasadam, but because of delay in service prasadam to me, or the reason that I was neglected in receiving prasadam in night time, that intercepted my mind. I was struck up by aggression, and in an angry mood I shouted. I misbehaved, not exactly misbehaved, but the sporadic emotions that came out, and I shouted. So, but that devotee was very good in cooking. He was serving much that I repented. I lamented much thereafter, and because of our material complexities, our different occupational responsibility that does not match with the devotees. Because by that time I had recently joined in the temple. I was working in the material environment for a long time, and that is not becoming synchronous with the standard of the temple, how to behave with the devotees in the initial stage of life. So that created a problem. That is the basic cause of the disharmony or that took place. So thereafter I modulated myself to the standard as it is desirable to be devotee in Krishna consciousness. Thereafter I learned, I started respecting the senior devotees, and by the by I am trying to improve myself, and I have already formulated some systematic plans. And when I will approach a devotee, I shall be humble. I will be very, very humble, very compassionate to the degree it is desired. By the by, I will develop myself. Okay.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Very nice. Very honest description. Thank you. Yes, anybody else like to offer?
I can say very bad thing about me. Yeah, one time we were in a temple we were in Atlanta actually, and there is there's a devotee. My daughter was at that time, she was 4 or 5 year old, and this devotee's daughter was 2 years older than my daughter. So I saw her, my daughter was very naughty, of course, very young age, so she's going around here and there and trying to make friends with everyone, even in the temple. So I saw that mother actually telling her child not to go and associate with her because she did not want distraction for her child, which actually made me very sad and very hurt. And from then onwards, whenever I met in any association the lady and her daughter, I was very apprehensive, what is she going to do? And I was telling my daughter not to go there, so not get humiliated. So this actually created some trouble in my mind. I started realizing, because maybe she's not affected. She doesn't even realize that I heard her when she was talking to her daughter. But it was affecting me of avoiding her. And so what I tried to consciously do, even now, what I do is whenever she's in a group where I am, I try to think that this is my karma, why I got this. First of all. Second point is, it is true that my daughter was naughty, and that is why she did, because she wanted her daughter to be more Krishna conscious and not in the playful mood. And that's how I try to, correct myself and hold myself and be responsible and not be angry on her or upset on her.
Very good, very nice, very interesting. Really not an easy job bringing up children, is it? And so many things to be considered. Taking care of children, very challenging. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, well, go ahead. Yeah, someone can read this statement here.
The Lord stated that the punishment inflicted by the sages upon the doorkeepers Jaya and Vijaya was conceived by the Lord himself. Without the Lord's sanction, nothing can happen. It is to be understood that there was a plan in the cursing of the Lord's devotees in Vaikuṇṭha, and his plan is explained by many stalwart. The fighting spirit also exists in the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how could fighting be manifested at all? Because the Lord is the source of everything, anger and fighting are also inherent in his personality. When he desires to fight with someone, he has to find an enemy. But in the Vaikuṇṭha world, there is no enemy, because everyone is engaged fully in his service. Therefore, he sometimes comes to the material world as the incarnation in order to manifest his fighting. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.16.36.
Okay.
No, 26.
So here we see the reason why the Lord arranged this conflict here between the four Kumaras and Jaya and Vijaya. Actually, the Lord wants to fight. This is explained to us by the Acharyas, that the Lord desires to fight. That fighting mood's there in everyone, and the Lord also enjoys. So who can he fight with? He has to fight with some very special devotees. Not everyone can fight with, just anyone can fight with the Lord. So the Lord arranged for his two gatekeepers that they would be cursed, and in this way they would go to the material world, and they will take the form of demons, and this will give the Lord an opportunity to have a good fight. What? Is it something very important? So the Lord has to fight. He wants a fight, and he arranged that Jaya and Vijaya, that they would come to the material world, and they would take the form of demons. In this way he would enjoy a good battle. So this was the explanation why the Lord allowed this, because each person was saying they were responsible. Jaya and Vijaya were feeling guilty that they stopped the four Kumaras from entering to the spiritual world. The four Kumaras were feeling guilty that they had cursed Jaya and Vijaya unnecessarily. But then the Lord comes along and he said it's all his responsibility. He feels guilt. He said, it's my fault. I'm responsible for whatever happened. And here's the reason why the Lord arranged this, that he wants to fight, so that the two gatekeepers will come to the material world and he can have a fight with them.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question.
Yeah?
Maharaj, the spiritual world is complete, and here we can see the Lord's desire to fight is because that quality is there. It's not necessary to inflict suffering upon another person. So why is it that in the spiritual world there is no fighting, when we know that Krishna does fight with his friends when they're playing, they do wrestling, Prabhupada says it's a Vaishnava activity. So why is it that it's not there, or has there been some explanation on that furthermore? Because here it just says that there is no enemy, but friends also can wrestle as a sport.
Well, Vaikuṇṭha, remember, Vaikuṇṭha, we heard about the nature of Vaikuṇṭha. There's perfect harmony there. There's no difference of opinion. There's no conflicts of interest. Everyone's in perfect harmony with the desire of the Lord. And the Lord of Vaikuṇṭha is there, he's worshipped with awe and veneration. So the mood of Vaikuṇṭha is to give great respect and reverence to the Lord. So how can you fight with someone like that when you have that mood? Of course, we know in days of old there were different kings and rulers, and they would keep people around who would fight with them just to keep them in shape. They'd have people there who could wrestle with them and test their skills. But in Vaikuṇṭha, because he's the Lord of Vaikuṇṭha, he cannot, nobody will have the desire to fight with him. Because everyone is the devotee, they're all pure devotees. And they're worshipping the Lord in the mood of Vaikuṇṭha, with awe and reverence, awe and veneration. So, how can you possibly fight? You can't, if you're giving so much respect, you're not going to fight. So they have to come to the material world. And by coming into the material world, then you get a real fight, not just a mock fight. Whatever they would do in Vaikuṇṭha would just be a mock fight. It wouldn't be real, because all the time thinking the Lord. But by coming into the material world and by sending the gatekeepers to the material world, then the Lord gets a real fight. And look at, he arranged very powerful, very, very powerful demons. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were so powerful. They were so strong, they were invincible, and then they got blessings from Brahma as well. So the Lord wants to enjoy, and one of the ways in which he enjoys is by fight. And he wants to have a good fight. Then they relish it more, right? They relish it more. The better the opponent is, the more you relish the fight. And so it was arranged like this. They must come to the material world to do it. Right?
But
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yeah, Maharaj, but there is fight in the Golok Vrindavan during the childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna. That was Prabhuji was asking. So there was wrestling, there was a group fighting. Krishna was exhibiting in his pastimes. And whether this Vaikuṇṭha planet is different from Golok Vrindavan, or?
Oh yes, Vaikuṇṭha is different from Golok Vrindavan.
Oh, right.
And there are no real demons in Golok Vrindavan. In Golok Vrindavan, the demons are only in Gokula. The demons are all killed by Vasudeva Krishna.
Maharaj, for fighting like that particular jiva is why it is required. Like any jiva can get no strength to fight with Lord. Is this in strength? Jivatma also contributes something. That strength comes from material nature, no? Like suppose any other demons, whatever he does. So that strength it comes because of material nature, no?
Well, yeah, somebody's born with a strong body. We could say that due to karma, somebody has the karma, they have a very strong, powerful body. So it was arranged that these two brothers who are coming, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, that they would have very, very powerful, strong bodies. It was arranged. Why? Because the Lord knows He's going to fight with them and He wants them to be very powerful, very strong. Then He can give them a better fight.
So Maharaj, whatever bodies Jivatma gets first time, suppose that is decided by Lord or by his karma or something.
The body we get, the material body is our karma, yeah. David, according to the will of the Lord and our karma. There is the will of the Lord also and also karma.
Thank you.
So, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they fell from the spiritual world. They took birth in the womb of Diti, right? Originally the question was, what was the cause of the darkness in the universe? And it was described by Lord Brahma, the cause of the darkness was because of the two children who were in the womb of Diti, that they were demons. And they were very powerful, very strong. We'll hear more about them in the coming chapter.
Maharaj, can I ask one question?
Yes.
Whereas, as it is a general procedure, is that the devas or the living entities, they come in the form of rain and they take shelter of these grains and they go to their father and they become the blood and then in the semen. And then in that way they are injected into the mother's body. So in this case, actually, this is not so. This didn't happen in that way. Because they were just after doing sex only at that time only they were injected. So it is different from the usual process.
Different from the usual process?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, it's described like that. Of course, that's one way in which particles fall. That was falling from the higher planets, that it comes down in the form of rain, and then the rain enters into the grains, and then the grains are eaten by man, and like that. Yeah, it's described like that. That is describing about some jivas which fall from the higher planets.
Yes, Maharaj.
It's not always like that, but in some cases it's like that.
Okay, Maharaj.
So fighting, did we read this slide?
No, Maharaj.
All right, you can read.
Therefore, just as on a theatrical stage, someone takes the part of enemy to the proprietor of the stage, although the play is for a short time and there is no permanent enmity between the servant and the proprietor, so the Sura Janas, devotees, were cursed by the sages to go to the Asura Jana or atheistic families. That a devotee should come into an atheistic family is surprising, but it is simply a show. After finishing their mock fighting, both the devotee and the Lord are again associated in the spiritual planets. That is very explicitly explained here. The conclusion is that no one falls from the spiritual world or Vaikuṇṭha planet, for it is the eternal abode. But sometimes, as the Lord desires, devotees come into this material world as preachers or as atheists. In each case, we must understand that there is a plan of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.6.26.
So this is a very complex issue, you can see. How devotees, they're falling from the spiritual world, but they're going to be atheists. They're going to be the enemies of the Lord, right? This was a curse, because if they would take birth as demons, then they would come back to the Lord quicker. Remember, it was the Jaya and Vijaya, they simply prayed that if we have to go to the material world, a long time there in the material world, and we don't want to forget the Lord. So it was arranged that they would take birth in demons, because if they would go as devotees, then it would take longer time. But if they will go as demons, then quickly they will be able to come back to the Lord. And in taking birth as demons, they will remember the Lord, and they will remember the Lord in an angry mood. That their relationship with the Lord would be based on anger. Their hate and anger towards the Lord. That was the force which brought them back to Godhead quicker. And so as Jaya and Vijaya, they fell, they became Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. And we would say, how is it they were devotees and then they become demons? Well, it was the arrangement of the Lord. You see, they were not ordinary demons. They were not ordinary demons like Venu, who never remembered the Lord, but they always remembered the Lord, and they were very hateful of the Lord, and they were always against him in a very inimical manner, a very angry mood. So that was the curse which was put on them.
Maharaj, I have a question that in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that a devotee is never perished and he comes back. He just like in Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, he said, Sasat Shanti Nigachati. Khiprang Bhavati Dharmatma. Sasat Shanti Khiprang means very rapidly he becomes a devotee. So how that devotee takes long time and demon takes a short time in going back to spiritual?
Well, the point was that it was the curse. That if you take birth as a devotee, then you have to take 7 births.
Okay.
So it's going to take a long time. But if you go as a demon, you just have to take 3 births. So it was arranged they would come as demons. And then they can come back to Godhead quicker.
So my point from Maharaj is that if one becomes a devotee, he cannot come back sooner.
Cannot what?
Come back sooner to the spiritual world.
But still, you go into the material world, just like you go as a devotee. What does the devotee do? Maybe he's doing meditation, like meditate for thousands of years. Like Markandeya Rishi got a blessing, he could live through the night of Brahma. So some devotees, they live a very long time in the material world. And the lifetime of Brahma is quite long. Brahma's a devotee. But he has a long life, quite a long life by material standards, right? He has the longest life of anyone in the material world. But he's a devotee. So devotees also have a long life. Although you could say, well, it's only a breath of Mahavishnu. What's the long life in the material world is actually just one breath of Mahavishnu. He breathes out and then breathes in. It's one breath. That's one lifetime of Brahma. Is that a long life? Well, by spiritual standards, it's not long.
Yes. Okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
I have a question, Maharaj. Before that, Padaseva Prabhu, I don't have a qualification to be this type of enemy also. So, this is the only way we can be. Probably Krishna will not come and kill us. We are not that fortunate. Maharaj, the question is, so here it is said that we have, Vaikuṇṭha planet, no one falls down. But we all have come from Vaikuṇṭha, right? Our origin is we are all eternal servitor of Krishna and we have come from there. So why did we then fall down? And why is it taking so much time for us to go back? You continued Padaseva Prabhu's question.
Yes. Well, this is of course this is a big question which we don't really answer. We don't have the perfect answer for it, but there are different ways we can explain it. For example, we're the marginal potency. As the living entities, we're Tatastha Shakti. So even though we're in the spiritual world, we're the Tatastha Shakti, and we do have that free will, that at any moment we want to leave there, we can leave. And so, we have that free will. Krishna doesn't force us that we have to stay there, because we are Tatastha Shakti. And so at any moment we can misuse that free will and come into the material world. So that's what happened. The vast majority of souls are in the spiritual world, but we somehow chose to come to this material world. So it was our choice. That's one explanation. The other explanation is that, this world is also the spiritual world, that we can be Krishna conscious here. It's not that you just have to go there. You can be Krishna conscious here, right here, in this world. We just have to revive our consciousness of Krishna. When we forget Krishna, that's when we're in the material world. As soon as we forget Krishna. But when we remember Krishna, then we're in the spiritual world. This world becomes the spiritual world. For the pure devotees, they will see this world as the spiritual world. And they won't see any difference. And Prabhupada also would give the example, he would quote the example given by his own spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He would speak about the tau fruit, and the different philosophers would argue, why did the fruit fall? And one man said, well, the fruit fell because it was ripe. And the other man said, no, the fruit fell because the crow landed on the tree. And when the crow landed on the tree, it caused the fruit to fall. And this way they were arguing about the fruit. Why did the fruit fall? But it's not important. It's foolish to argue about these things. What is important is to understand how to go back to Krishna. The most difficult thing to understand is how we fell from the spiritual world. But the easiest thing to understand is how to go back to the spiritual world. And we go back to the spiritual world simply by awakening our Krishna consciousness. So that's our real business, to become Krishna conscious. Yeah, by nature, we are all Krishna conscious. How did we get here? It's not important. Just try to understand how to get back, how to go back to Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj.
There is a nice article you can read. Jayadvaita Swami has written about it. Why did we fall from the spiritual world? If you go to Jayadvaita Swami's website, he's got it there. Or I can also post it. I'll give it to Parthasarati Prabhu, and he can send it to all the members in the group. The different arguments about how we came to this material world. Because naturally it's going to come up. Everybody will want to know. You know, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who comes to my abode never leaves. So how did we get here? Somehow we're here. We have to understand we have free will. We're Tatastha Shakti. We cannot take away our independence. But generally, one who goes to Krishna's abode will not leave. That's the general principle. But if we want to leave, he won't force us to stay. We have that free will. Okay. So sometimes it happens, these different situations, just like Jaya and Vijaya, you know, they have to go to the spiritual, they have to go to the material world. So Prabhupada writes about this in a purport here, in the final purport of this chapter. He says, seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. One should simply understand that in these matters there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like we may have some, you know, we had very powerful preachers, we had some wonderful preachers. I often reflect about some of the wonderful devotees who have left Prabhupada's mission, you know, wonderful preachers like Bhakti Tirtha Swami and Bhakti Swarup Damodar Swami and Tamal Krishna Goswami, these kind of people. They were such wonderful devotees. You know, so somehow Krishna took them away. And in Prabhupada's time, there was a man, he was a lecturer in the university, and he was a devotee. It was right in the beginning of our movement. In Gorakhpur, there was this one man there. He was a very good devotee, but somehow he died. So we may wonder how Krishna can take these devotees, how he can, you know, cause these difficulties for devotees. Just like Haridas Thakur, he's such a great devotee, but still he got beaten in 22 marketplaces. And then the Pandavas, they suffered also so much, so many reverses. And Draupadi is also such a great devotee, but she suffered so much. And then Maharaj Ambarish, Maharaj Chitraketu, there's so many examples. So we see devotees, they do suffer reverses. We should not be disturbed. We should simply understand that in these matters there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam's conclusion is that a devotee is never disturbed by such reverses. He accepts even reverse conditions as the grace of the Lord. One who continues to serve the Lord, even in reverse conditions, is assured that he will go back to Godhead, back to the Vaikuṇṭha planets. Of course, that's stated, that's the famous verse in 10th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam. Tate nukampam sushamikṣamana. Right? One who goes on serving Krishna and tolerates all the difficulties, then it becomes his rightful claim to go back to Godhead. Another point which we didn't bring up was another reason why Jaya and Vijaya were going to the material world. There was a problem between them and Lakshmi. It was described that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, wanted to come to see Lord Padmanabha, but Jaya and Vijaya would not allow her because the Lord was resting. And so when Jaya and Vijaya restricted the goddess of fortune entrance in to see Lord Padmanabha, then she also was angry at them and she cursed them. So there was another reason why they were also going to the material world, that they had upset the goddess of fortune. So that explanation was given there. Okay, so are there any questions? Yes.
We should never take up, even if we get a job as Jaya Vijaya, we should never take up that thankless job then. Because as a guard, he needs to do his duty, but he cannot because he will be cast from here and there.
Yes. Yeah, you have to be careful what kind of job you take. Definitely a challenging job. You can make enemies, can't you? Yeah, sometimes like that. Not all jobs are so pleasing. You make some enemies as well as some friends. Okay.
So Maharaj, the chapter is now closed. That the question what was being discussed in the beginning of the class, Maharaj, that impersonalists, they are also classified as devotees.
Impersonalists? No. They're transcendentalists, but they're not devotees.
Okay.
They're transcendentalists. Means they have detached themselves from materialistic life. And they can enter into the spiritual sky, but generally they will just enter into the Brahmajyoti. They won't enter into the spiritual planets.
But Maharaj, the four Kumaras, they at the doorstep of Vaikuṇṭha planet, the quarrel took place. They were still impersonalists. After seeing the Lord, they were transformed into devotees.
Yes.
Still the conception arises that the devotees were offended, they were prohibited to enter, they are not allowed to enter the Vaikuṇṭha planet, etc. So on the background of recognizing them as devotees, that's why that strikes my mind of the question.
On the background, I didn't get your question.
I'm saying that the impersonalists, these four Kumaras were still impersonalists before they're seeing the Lord. They were on the gateway, the seventh gate.
Yes.
So after seeing the Lord, they became devotees. Before that, they were impersonalists.
Yes. Right.
So how they recognized as devotees by the Lord, that means Jaya Vijaya committed offense against them by not allowing them to enter inside.
Yes, but Jaya and Vijaya was arranged by the Lord. You know, that it was this whole incident was the arrangement of the Lord, so that Jaya and Vijaya can go to the material world, and then they can fight with the Lord. Because the Lord desires to have a good fight, a good battle. He enjoys this pastime. So he arranged that these two gatekeepers would go there, become demons, and they'll give him a good battle.
Okay. Yes, Maharaj. Now, in connection with this question, then in text 31, that Lord advised Jaya Vijaya to perform mystic yoga in anger. Why they were not advised to perform devotional services?
Mystic yoga in anger. Because they're going as the demons, they're going as the enemies of the Lord. The Lord wants to have a fight. So it was arranged that they would go in that mystic yoga of anger, and in this way they'll give a greater battle to the Lord. If they will just simply go as devotees, the Lord already has so many devotees in the spiritual world. But he wanted to enjoy this rasa, this anger. He wanted to enjoy this fight with them. It's all the lila of the Lord, that he wants to enjoy these pastimes with the demons. So he sent his devotees, Jaya and Vijaya, to become demons in an angry mood and to fight with him, because they are so angry, they're so hateful and so envious and bitter towards the Lord, so they'll give him a better fight. The Lord will enjoy more that battle.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Again, in text 30, there is also Jaya Vijaya had also committed a similar offense, not by allowing Lakshmi, goddess of fortune, to enter the Vaikuṇṭha planet.
Well, it wasn't they didn't allow her to enter the Vaikuṇṭha planets, but they didn't allow her to go and disturb Lord Padmanabha. She wanted to go and see her husband, but they restricted her. So because the Lord was resting, so they were doing their job as servants. It's not an easy job. The Lord was resting, and they didn't want to disturb the Lord. We thought, wait till the Lord wakes up. But Lakshmi didn't like it, and she thought, these two gatekeepers are stopping me from going to see my husband. So she was not pleased.
So Maharaj, does it not constitute an offense?
Yes, you could say it's an offense, yeah. But it's an accident, it's not a serious offense. They were doing their duty. They were doing their duty. Was it an offense? Who was offensive? Jaya and Vijaya were offensive by not allowing Lakshmi to go and disturb Lord Padmanabha. But they were doing their service for Lord Padmanabha. They didn't want him to be disturbed. They wanted him to have rest.
Maharaj, Ramaya Prabhu want to add something.
Yes?
Maharaj, two small items. One is that it seems what it means when the Lord wants to fight, that means the opponent will be killed, which could not happen in Vaikuṇṭha.
Okay.
And the other point is that if Krishna has the desire to fight in Vaikuṇṭha, it would seem that the jiva could also have that desire.
Oh, definitely. That's mentioned, that the desire, because the jivas have that desire, the desire is also there in the Lord. Yeah. We see a lot of fighting, just right now, we've got Russia and Ukraine fighting, Why are they fighting, Just they have that desire to fight, This human nature, this mentality of lording over one another.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
Maharaj, I heard before in one lecture, so I wanted to reconfirm that one, my understanding. This Kumaras, they were impersonalists. So I heard in lecture that impersonalists are two types. One is Brahmavadi, another is Nirakarvadi.
Okay.
So Nirakarvadi, they are not allowed Vaikuṇṭha.
Yeah.
But whereas the Brahmavadi, they are allowed, even though they are not devotee, but they accept the Lord. So, Maharaj, could you please elaborate a little so that we have better understanding?
Well, we said the Brahmavadis, they understand the Brahman, they're attracted by the Brahman, they're just not attracted so much to devotional service. Their attraction is more for the Brahman. So just like with Jaya and Vijaya, they never had the opportunity to actually see the Lord. So they had never awakened their interest towards devotional service. their interest was simply on contemplating the Brahman. And they simply absorbed themselves in contemplating the Brahman. But they had heard about the Supreme Brahman. They'd heard about the Lord. Lord Brahma had told them about the Lord. They'd heard about him, but they hadn't taken it very seriously. They were more inclined towards the Brahman. And that's how they were simply Brahmagyanis. And so they entered into the spiritual world, but when they actually met with the Lord directly, then there was a change in the heart. It came about that there was a transformation. Due to seeing the Lord and smelling the aroma of the tulsis from his lotus feet, it entered their nostrils and it brought about a change in their heart. And so from Gyanis, they became Shanta Bhaktas, devotees in Shantaras. Devotee in Shantaras means they appreciate the opulence of the Lord, but they don't actually engage in any service. And so that was the position of the four Kumaras. They were attracted. They saw the beauty of the Lord. Very nice, beautiful, and very wonderful. And they took shelter of the Lord, but they don't do any service. They're in Shantaras.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, they were not Nirakara. Nirakara means that's completely, they don't denying the form of Lord.
Right.
They were not Nirakara.
Yeah, right. They were not Nirakara. Yeah. But they were Brahmagyanis. They were attracted by the Brahman. They just did not feel that an inspiration to take up devotional service. Yeah, although Lord Brahma had told them, but still, it just wasn't enough to get their interest. They had to actually, when they went there and saw the Lord, then they understood, oh yeah, this is it. And they were definitely attracted.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj, in Shantaras also there is service, right? Like trees and all, they also serve Krishna by giving fruits and flowers. And Kumaras also used to do, they also do service like preaching, right? In many places we see that the Kumaras go for preaching purposes, right?
Yes, sometimes we hear about it, that they came to Maharaj Prithu's sacrifices. We hear about Sanat Kumar coming there. But generally their mood is Santaras.
Okay. But in Santaras there is no service? The trees, plants, they do serve, isn't it so?
Well, not all trees, some trees. Yeah, some trees will be doing service, not all the trees. It depends, Definitely, you could say trees, cows like that, Shantaras. But just the nature is there. The nature is there, just, that they're just appreciating the opulence, not actually actively engaging in the Lord's service.
Okay.
The four Kumaras, I think the 9 Yogendras are also in Shantaras.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, actually I have two doubts. Can I ask? In the text 2 of 16th chapter, the translation it is stated that the personality of Godhead said, "These attendants of mine, Jaya Vijaya, have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring me." I did not get that.
Have committed a great offense against you by
because of ignoring me.
Ignoring me.
Yeah. So I did not get how, Krishna saying they ignored because they were ignoring Krishna. So I did not get this.
Well, The 4 Kumaras, Jaya and Vijaya have committed an offense. Let me see, I have to look at the verse. Text number 2, eh?
Yes, Maharaj.
In the verse or in the purport?
It's in the translation, yeah.
Yeah, Jaya and Vijaya, by name, have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring me. Well, they've committed the offense against the 4 Kumaras by ignoring me. In other words, they've gone against it, the will of the Lord. The will of the Lord. They should not have stopped, the 4 Kumaras. So the 4 Kumaras are also, they're also dear associate, they're servants of the Lord. They're not as intimate as Jaya and Vijaya. Jaya and Vijaya are more closely connected to the Lord. But the 4 Kumaras are also, they're very senior in the universe. They're the oldest sons of Lord Brahma. And so they have that free will that they can come into the spiritual world and that they can come into the Vaikuṇṭha planets. But Jaya and Vijaya have restricted them. Right, Prabhupada said, this is a remarkable fact in the dealings of the Lord and the servitor, as seen in the present incident. Offending a devotee, one neglects the Supreme Lord himself. So that's the point. This word, atikraman. Offending a devotee, by offending a devotee, we neglect the Lord. Because the devotee is the representative of the Lord. And if we don't properly respect the devotees, then it's an offense against the Lord. And the Lord will take it more seriously. The Lord can tolerate offenses against himself, but he cannot tolerate offenses against his devotees. So the devotees, they have taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Now here you have the 4 Kumaras, they have come into the spiritual world. Of course, we may say, well, they're not devotees yet, they're Brahmagyanis, but they're very elevated souls. They're saintly persons. They're dedicated to self-realization. They may not be fixed in devotional service yet, but still they're very, very elevated souls, and we should respect them. So they've come to the spiritual world, and they should be given respect. And if we don't properly respect them, then it's an offense against the Lord also. Then the Lord is not pleased.
Another question was, in the text 15, in word to word, the meaning of Parmeshthya is of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the purport, okay, I got it. Parmeshthya means the opulence of Brahma. So mainly, does it mean because opulence of Brahma coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's why of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, something like that. In the word to word translation.
In the word for word translation?
The meaning is of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the purport, the Parmeshthya meaning is opulence of Brahma. So mainly because it's always coming from Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's why it's written like that.
Where does it say the opulence of Brahma? In the purport?
Yeah, in the purport it is the opulence of Brahma.
Oh, well, in the purport there's a different thing. The higher opulence in the material world is called Parameshthya, the opulence of Brahma. Param Estya, the opulence of Brahma. But that material opulence of Brahma, who lives on the topmost planet within them, cannot compare to the opulence of the Supreme Lord. So, well, the word for words, I think the purports are more important than the word for word. The word for words are... Prabhupada used to have a Sanskrit editor who would do the word for him. So the word for word probably was done by a devotee, but Prabhupada's purport is more reliable. And Prabhupada has put here, Paramestya, the opulence of Brahma. And he mentions about the opulence of Brahma, how it cannot compare to the opulence of the Supreme Lord. You read it very carefully. It's a good point to note. You picked out this point, huh? Yes, in the word for word meaning, there's the difference there. It says the opulence of the Lord, and there it says opulence of Brahma. How to? I think we should go by the purport. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, you are saying something for the previous question, Maharaj?
Yeah. I was telling her better to stick with the purport.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu, you had a question?
Yes, Maharaj. I just wanted to verify that, as you said, Maharaj, sometimes we see that very advanced devotees, also in ISKCON, they suffer a lot. As just you said, maybe. So why does that happen, Maharaj? There are different reasons due to giving initiation to unqualified disciples, or sometimes because of own sinful reactions. How to think about it, Maharaj?
Yeah, but both reasons are valid. It could be either way. It could be due to accepting unqualified disciples, and it could be also due to their own inattention, their own slackness and sadhana, and negligence, and spiritual practice. That it happens, that it does happen, that in the beginning a person may be very good and good Krishna consciousness, and it may appear to be very qualified. We see some people, in the beginning they were very good, they were very qualified, and they were working very well, and Prabhupada gave them the chance, initiate disciples, and not so on like that. But then they get into spiritual difficulties. Why did they get into spiritual difficulties? Well, as you say, it could be accepting unqualified disciples, but it can also be due to our own negligence in spiritual practices. Sometimes we become proud also, becoming careless, and not strictly following all the principles.
Yes.
So,
yes,
just like...
Can we say that it is...
Just like we were reading today, that even in the spiritual world there's possibility of offense. Alright? That even in Vaikuṇṭha you can commit offenses.
Yes, ma'am.
So the same way, just because somebody is elevated, may be considered a spiritual master and like that, a leader in the society, doesn't mean he cannot make offenses. He can also make offenses.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. So, can we say that it is only due to offenses and not the sins of previous lives? Or can we say that because of sins of the previous lives also it happens?
Well, sins of previous life, someone's already a devotee, they're engaging in devotional service, their sins of previous life should be eradicated by devotional service. I'm not I'm doubtful that a person's spiritual difficulties could be due to previous life. But what may happen is that the person becomes slack in his spiritual practice. Initially he becomes slack in spiritual practice, and then, because he's slack in spiritual, then the sins from the past life, then they come back on him. Because he's given up the shelter of Krishna. So he goes back under the material energy, and he takes on his old karma.
Yes, Maharaj. One more reason, Maharaj, I heard from, I think Kadam Kanan Swami Maharaj was telling that Krishna can alter the reaction for a devotee. Sometimes he increases the reaction to so that a person gets purified much faster. So that he gets purified faster, so he double or triples the reaction, so that he progresses fast and is purified.
He gets triple the reaction, double or triple the reaction, so he gets purified. Well, that's an interesting theory. I don't. It could be true. Why not? Krishna can do these things. Krishna certainly can do these things to us just to purify us, to bring us out of our ignorance, and to make it, just like we saw in Srimad Bhagavatam, you have the example of Chitraketu, how Chitraketu was cursed by Parvati and he became Vritasura. And so in the body of Vritasura, you know, he had this terrible body, a huge body, demon body. And he had to suffer, his arm cut off, and then the other arm cut off, and then he swallowed Indra, and Indra cut out from his intestine, and then Indra cut off his head. So, you know, this was you could say this was incredible karma, but he got rid of all that karma, he could go back to Godhead. So sometimes, as you say, triple suffering, it's to get rid of all the karma, just so that make it quicker to go back to Godhead.
Yes, Maharaj. So there are many reasons for suffering.
Yeah, the suffering which the devotee goes through is not ordinary. That usually we don't think of the suffering to be karma. If he's still a devotee, if he's still in Krishna consciousness and he's suffering, it's not karma, but it's special mercy of Krishna. Sometimes, just like the Pandavas suffered so much, it's to show the greatness of their devotion. And you can see Haridas Thakur, it's to show Haridas' unflinching faith in the holy name, that he could be beaten so much, but he just tolerated it. So, to bring out the greatness of the devotee, sometimes Krishna puts the devotee through these difficulties, to show how steadfast they are, despite so many difficulties, that they'll never give up the shelter of Lord Krishna. But it's not karma.
Yes, Maharaj. And at the small point, Maharaj, this the Veer Rasa, how can it be a rasa if it is not present in the spiritual world and Krishna has to come to the material world to taste it?
Well, it was that they had to come to the material world in order to fight with the Lord. That fighting spirit, and as we heard, Ramya Prabhu was pointing out, killing also, you know, that bring about the actual death of the other person, killing the person. So that's in the material world. You're not going to do like that in the spiritual world. There's none of that going on in the spiritual world. But it will be much greater drama, much more intense in the material world.
Yes, Maharaj. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so then we'll finish here tonight. We still have chapters 17, 18, and 19. If you look through them, they're brief chapters. There's not much in the way of purports there. So we'll finish them in the next class. So the next class will be the last class for this unit. So that will be on Saturday. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki